In 2023, a scheduled major renovation began in an old government building. The site, built in the mid-20th century, was a massive administrative complex. Work was underway on all floors, including the utility levels and basements. An engineering team was comparing the actual layout to archival blueprints. During this process, they discovered an anomaly in one of the basement wings. A 1960s blueprint showed an office, number 047B. But in its place, there was a solid wall with no visible openings. The initial theory was that the room had been removed during a past renovation. However, a closer inspection of the wall revealed a bricked-up doorway. The brickwork was old, but its composition and color differed from the main wall. The decision was made to open it. The work was supervised by the building manager and a representative from the archive service. After removing the bricks, they found a steel door with an old-fashioned lock. On the door was a wax seal from a government agency, dated 1971. The seal was intact. The door was opened. Behind it was a small windowless room. The air was dry, with a distinct smell of old paper and dust. The interior was perfectly preserved. It contained a desk, a chair, a document cabinet, and several pieces of specialized equipment. Everything was covered in a uniform layer of dust. An initial inspection showed that the office had been left in a hurry, but sealed according to procedure. This was not just a forgotten room, but a deliberately preserved site. Agency archivists and intelligence historians were brought in to determine the purpose of Office 047B. By analyzing the documents and equipment, they quickly identified its function. From the 1960s to the early 1970s, this room served as an analytical data processing station. Its main task was to monitor and analyze radio intercepts. Its basement location provided the necessary soundproofing and protection from external electronic interference. The employee who worked here was responsible for decoding messages and compiling daily reports for senior management. It was a low-level, but vital, part of a large intelligence structure. Offices like this were created in many government buildings to decentralize operations and increase security. In official records, the office was known by the code name Source 12. It was not part of any major operation. Rather, it was focused on the routine work of gathering intelligence on a potential adversary. The operation of these stations was strictly regulated. Access was limited to a small number of authorized personnel. According to archival records, the reason for sealing the office in 1971 was a technical upgrade. The agency was transitioning to more modern equipment that required different facilities. The old station was declared obsolete. It was sealed off with some of its equipment, which was no longer valuable but contained traces of classified activity. According to the regulations of that time, decommissioning meant complete isolation of the site. After the room was opened, a full inventory of its contents was conducted. Every item was documented, photographed, and analyzed by specialists. The centerpiece was a heavy oak desk, topped with green felt. On the desk were a lamp with a heavy metal base, a Bakelite inkwell set with 2 ink pots, a heavy glass ashtray, containing a single cigarette but from the Bello Morcanal brand, a stack of A4 paper, yellowed with age, a black rotary telephone, model TA68. The cord was disconnected from the junction box on the wall. To the right of the desk, on a separate stand, was a set of equipment. A tube-based shortwave radio receiver, model R250M2 kit. The device was switched off.
À réel-to-réel tape recordé, modèle timbre 2.
A reel of Type 6 magnetic tape was on the machine. The tape was partially unwound.
À télétype machine, modèle STA M67.
A paper tape was loaded into it. The last received message was cut off mid-word. Along the wall stood a metal safe and a document cabinet. The safe was closed but not sealed. Inside were bound ledgers of incoming and outgoing coded telegrams from 1969 to 1971. The cabinet contained technical manuals for the equipment, binders of agency orders, and several folders with analytical reports. All documents were marked for official use only.
11 Wologne à Terhoff Calendar.
The top page was dated Tuesday, October 12, 1971. Next to it was a political map of Europe, with handwritten marks near several seaports. Above the map was a portrait of Leonid Brezhnev. The overall condition of all items was rated as excellent. The dry air and lack of light had preserved the paper, fabric, and metal. The room was a precise documentary snapshot of a single workday for an analyst in the autumn of 1971. Official documents contained no personal data about the employee. The logs used only code designations and service numbers. However, unofficial findings helped to build a profile of him. The cigarette, but in the ashtray, was a key detail. It was a Bello Morcanal, a popular brand at the time. Next to the ashtray was an empty box of matches from the Balabanovo factory. Inside a desk drawer, several notes were scribbled in pencil. Among them was a diagram of a chess problem, a mate in 3 moves. This suggests the employee was a chess enthusiast, likely solving puzzles in his spare time. Tucked inside one of the report folders was a torn piece of a newspaper page. It was a TV guide for the week. An ice hockey match, USSR versus Czechoslovakia, scheduled for the evening of October 12, 1971, was circled in red pencil. This points to the employee's personal interest in sports. The most significant finding was an unfinished cup of tea, with dried residue at the bottom. Chemical analysis showed a high concentration of tannins. It was very strong black tea. The cup was left right on the desk, next to the ledgers. These details paint a picture of a person, not just a function. The employee was a man, likely middle-aged. He smoked and enjoyed chess and hockey. He was focused on his work, as suggested by the strong tea, but he was not without human habits. The abandoned cup, the partially unwound tape, and the torn teletype message create a scene of an activity that was suddenly interrupted. The order to seal the station must have come without warning. The employee was told to leave his post immediately, leaving everything as it was. Office 047B is more than just a storeroom of old objects. It is a physical imprint of its time. Every item in it is a symbol of the Cold War. The tube radio, the reel-to-reel recorder, and the teletype machine were the technologies of their generation. Bulky, power-hungry, but reliable. They represent the technological level of the period. It was an analog world where information was transmitted physically, on tapes, punch cards, and paper telegrams. This was an era before the digital revolution, before the internet and satellite communications. The strict system of accounting and control is visible everywhere. The bound ledgers, wax seals, and classification stamps. The state machine operated on clear, formal rules. Every step was documented. The employee's identity was secondary to his function. The lack of windows and the basement location were not just technical requirements. They are a metaphor for the secrecy and isolation characteristic of the entire period. The conflict between the two superpowers took place not only on battlefields, but also in quiet, unseen offices like this one. The political map on the wall, with its markings, is direct evidence of constant global surveillance. The employee's personal items, the chess problem, the interest in hockey, the cigarettes, show that even within a rigid and impersonal system, there was room for humanity. Routine work did not eliminate simple, everyday interests. However, this personal life was completely subordinate to the interests of the service. Thus, the discovered office is a microcosm. It reflects the ideological, technological, and psychological state of a society at one specific moment in history. It is a physical testament to an era, one that reveals more about the past than many archival documents. After the inventory and analysis were complete, the agency's leadership had to decide the future of Office 047B. 2 main options were proposed. The first option was complete disposal. This involved removing and disposing of all equipment and documents. The room would then be renovated and repurposed for modern needs. This approach was pragmatic and economically sound. From a functional standpoint, the office had no value. The second option was preservation and museum display. This plan was proposed by the historians and archivists who worked on the discovery. They insisted on the site's unique value. The office was an authentic time capsule, an untouched installation showing the real working environment of the Cold War era. Its value was not functional, but historical and cultural. Representatives from several state museums supported the second option. They emphasized that such authentic sites have almost never survived. Most similar rooms were either repeatedly modernized or completely destroyed. The decision was made by an interagency commission. Given the high public and historical interest, a compromise was chosen. It was decided to preserve Office 047B in its original state. All items were left in place. The room was sealed and equipped with a climate control system to prevent further decay of the materials. Access to the office itself was restricted. However, it was decided to create a small exhibition in an adjacent room. This exhibition includes detailed photographs, copies of documents, and a 3D model of the office. A virtual tour allows anyone to explore the discovery without disturbing its integrity. In this way, the time capsule has been preserved for future generations, as a physical monument to a complex and controversial era.